Welcome back to the Traders Network. I'm Michael Yorba, your host. Thanks for joining us. We're also streaming to you live on yorbamedia.com and broadcasting to you from the Dallas KFXR 1190 AM Clear Channel Studios. All right, my esteemed pleasure to bring on, first time to the show, Vincent Molinari, founder and CEO of Gate Global Impact, and our new crowdfunding correspondent. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Michael, thank you so much, and thank your audience for taking the time to listen to what we have to say today.
All right, well, my pleasure. Now, let's get a little background on you because it's very diverse and it's far-reaching. Can you open up just a little bit and hit some of the highlights and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, since we're going to get to know you so well as we go forward?
Well, thank you, Michael. I've been in financial services and technology my entire career as a regulated person. Been an entrepreneur or masochist, depending upon what day of the week it is, right?
Right.
For the past 15-odd years, focused on innovating financial service applications, creating efficiencies in those processes, and bringing those technologies to a lot of emerging markets globally.
Right. Now, what is impact investing? Because you have Global Impact as your company, and I wanted you to Gate Global Impact, excuse me. I wanted you to break that out and tell us what that is.
Again, I love the question because we're so early in the cycle. So Gate Global Impact represents a change, what I dare say is a paradigm shift in how investors are going to be looking for opportunities to invest their money and make money earlier in the cycle in private companies, but also private companies that deliver good. And what do we mean by that? Ways where they are delivering an environmental, a social, or a cause-related benefit alongside the financial rate of return. So really, the beginnings of a new investment practice or a new way to invest capital that's really at the cutting edge.
Socially responsible investments.
Socially responsible, corporate responsibility, the greater awareness that's occurring in our marketplaces to have transparency, efficiency, diversity in supply chain. But the difference here is this is not philanthropy, it is not donation-based, this is sustainable investments and making money while you're doing it.
Give us an idea of some of the investments that you've been talking about in particular. We don't have to get a complete breakdown, but just a flavor for where you've helped companies put their money that have been socially responsible, but yet also financially rewarding.
Well, I think some of the greatest examples are at the high levels of what we've been able to achieve. We partnered with the United Nations Global Compact to bring the companies that they've sourced to an executing platform for investors to actually be able to invest. So this is moving beyond the information and awareness. We're about creating that education, but the big link here is how do you deploy the capital to make that investment, and that's what our technologies do. We've also done that very recently with a partnership with Microsoft and pioneering some of the work that they're doing. As well as with the United States State Department in the Overseas Private Investment Corporation and being a global originator and sourcing deal flow of U.S. companies that are looking for capital that are going to expand to overseas markets and create jobs here in the U.S. but also abroad.
Okay, so your reach when it comes to the types of investments that you work with your clients or the companies that come to you for this is truly international. It's not just domestic.
This is a global theme.
Right.
We're very focused on the U.S. right now as the changes in the Jobs Act, and we can talk a bit about that because I think it's so powerful.
Before we do, I want the audience to get a full flavor of your depth here because you have got a background in the beginning stages of how we're formalizing crowdfunding for securities. Tell our audience the depth that you go to, whether it's in the legislative body or the rulemaking body with the Securities Exchange Commission and so on, so they can get a flavor for where you speak from, not just that you're here talking about an idea, but you're actually part of the decision-making process that's going to shape this new industry sector.
Well, And that's very kind of you, Michael. I think we were very fortunate early on, as our vision was to try to repair the capital formation process, where our public markets, our IPOs going back 2 years ago, had gone from 500 IPOs annually down to about 120. What was more troubling was the size of those IPOs were in the billions. So what we saw happening is our entrepreneurs, our smaller, mid-sized companies, weren't accessing capital to grow. And what we started to forget about is our private sector in the United States generates approximately 90% of the new job creation in this country. So if we weren't feeding new capital to those private companies, we weren't having that job creation, economic recovery, and dare I say, expansion of jobs. So we were looking for new ways to help. How do we create a new industry, a new methodology to get capital to companies, and on the other side, have investors who are private investors, accredited investors, the retail investor, participate in deals that maybe venture capitalists only had access to, so that they could begin to invest earlier in the cycle before that public market exit, so that they, what we say is capture more alpha or make more money earlier in the cycle. So we advocated for changes of how many shareholders could be in a private company before it was forced to be a public filer. I testified in front of the United States Congress in September 2011 on the subcommittee on all these hearings around what became Title II of the Jobs Act in the removal of the solicitation ban. The ability for companies to advertise their securities, the first time in history of the United States in 80 years that could be done, and we can talk about how powerful that is. Title II in crowdfunding. All of these actions, we established the Crowdfunding Intermediary Regulatory Advocates, which is a leading industry. Started with 8 folks, and now I think we have close to 800 members to advocate with the SEC and FINRA on how to effectively help write the rules that are going to govern these changes that are coming over to financial services.
Now, you're participating in some of the decision, like voicing your opinion with the decision makers of the rules that are being made for this new funding industry sector, right?
Yeah, I say it from a very proud standpoint. We co-founded the Crowdfunding Professional Association, the Crowdfunding Intermediary Regulatory Advocates. My partner, DJ Paul, who's our Chief Strategy Officer, today in front of the House of Representatives Committee on Small Business hearing today on crowdfunding, testified. So our organization really has the breadth and the experts. My partner, Joe Latona, has been out advocating and building new systems as it relates to these changes and how we utilize them effectively.
All right. Now, we've got about 2 minutes left in this segment. We've got another segment that we can talk about a myriad of things. The crowdfunding for securities, just to sum it up, it's your first, not your last conversation here on the show. Give me an idea, the scope, the breadth, where you think this is going to go as we move forward in time.
Very quickly, it's going to change the distribution of securities in the United States. The ability for private companies to advertise, radio, television, on social media, it is going to become what happened on the consumerization of the web, efficiencies and greater distribution, now for the first time, because regulatory changes can now happen in the securities world.
Now, in your correspondence with being a correspondent on this sector, crowdfunding correspondent for the show, give us quickly an idea of the type of guests you're going to be bringing to the show, the kind of people we're going to be talking to.
My goodness, we're going to bring all the leaders. We're going to bring the leading congressmen, the leading senators, the decision makers at the SEC, at FINRA, the major Fortune 100 companies that are involved, the leading crowdfunding and impact companies. And one of the things, if I can just do it in a second, certainly thank you to yourself, Michael, and Yorba Media and Clear Channel for this opportunity. But I really want to engage with your listeners. I want them to call me direct, my personal cell, my partner Joe Latona's numbers. I'd like them to come and sign up to the website about being potential investors and looking at what we're doing. But I also want the entrepreneurs and small businesses that are listening to come and sign up and talk to us about their capital needs, how we might be able to help facilitate engaging with them so they can access that capital they need to grow.
Then let's take pause for just a moment before we go to our break and give everybody contact information.
The Molinari at gategglobalimpact.com. My cell number is 917-886-7250. And my partner, Joe Latona, J. Latona, Latona, at Gate Global Impact. And his number is 908-421-0417. And, come follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter. We're very active. We want to help change the way investments are being done and deliver that engine of capital so we can have a stronger United States.
All right, that well said. Let's talk about the paradigm shift on the other side of this break. We'll be right back on the other side of this break, more with Vincent Molinari. And I want to put out special thanks to Monk Media and 1-800 Public Relations for all their PR and media support. Don't go away. Very exciting stuff. Come back. Welcome back to the Traders Network. I'm Michael Yorba, your host, broadcasting to you live from the Dallas KFXR 1190 AM Clear Channel studios and streaming on yorbamedia.com. All right, it's my guest today, Vincent Molinari, our crowdfunding correspondent, founder, CEO, Gate Global Impact, on the show with us today. All right, after our last conversation, Vince, I feel like I just hit it out of the park with you. Let's because it's really hard to get your hands on the kind of people that are at your fingertips, that you work with daily, that you roll your sleeves up with in the boardroom, making the rules for this new industry sector. And I want you to open that up and talk to us about the shift in capital formation, distribution of securities, how you see that unfolding.
Well, and Michael, it's very fortunate that we have a voice and a seat at the table in expressing our opinions. Unfortunately, we don't make the rules ourselves, so that is the work of the SEC and FINRA, and they're doing a great job, although taking longer than we would all like, but it's just an inflection point of how powerful this is. And I want to challenge yourself, your listeners, to really just stop and think for a moment. And if you envision what's happened with eBay, for example, that small manufacturer in a remote location, who then all of a sudden had distribution on a regional basis, national, and globally to sell that same product. Mm-hmm. That distribution came very cheaply using Web 3.0, and they were able to be more competitive, secure cheaper costs of goods, et cetera, change the distribution of product. Well, for the first time, with the passage of the Jobs Act, on April 5th, 2012, and the rule that was finally written by the SEC on September 23rd, 2013, for Title II, the removal of the general solicitation ban. Sounds all fancy, but let's really make it basic. That means a company can advertise their company and the fact that they're looking to raise money. Now, everybody says, well, if I only could tell, if I only had the network to tell my story, many people would invest in my company. Well, now we're enabled to do that under Title II right now, to disseminate that information. And it could be on shows like yours on radio, television, and social media. So when we say a paradigm shift, the very change after 80 years, this is the first time as of September 23rd last year that companies can now use these mechanisms to go and raise money. That's going to create tremendous efficiency and access to more investors. On the other side of that, the actual investors are going to have new opportunities that they didn't get to see from a traditional investment standpoint. So it's a very exciting time where we think the movement of capital is going to be very efficient, powerful, create jobs, and when you can tie that to delivering good and changing investment practices around society, around the environment, incredibly powerful that you can do this and make money at the same time.
All right, now give us a for instance. That's a very good point to bring out here. Connect that dot. In doing good, making money, and involving society in it, because we've got this prolific medium to use, whether it's the internet, social network, or broadcast. Connect that dot for us on a, for instance, something you see coming up in the future.
Well, we look at this as Gate Global Impact, and we look at traditional crowdfunding, and let's say that's donation-based or perk-based, things like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Rocket Hub, right? You would get a product early, or you would get basically a donation for giving that money.
Right.
Now we're saying you could do that in the securities world. So you're aggregating, you're pulling together individual dollar amounts, and even the retail size investor, into a common funding cause. That could be something in their community. That could be diaspora investors, investors who have left their country to come to the United States, have been successful, and they could redeploy some money to help their home communities. You couldn't do that before. Now you can have education and information. We think it's so important to educate the marketplace because you have to have education. We call it actionable knowledge. Gate Global Impact believes the more information and knowledge that you could put into the system, the better the decision is going to be. That's a bit of the wisdom of the crowd. It's not just the ultra professionals at the money management firms, as smart as they are. The aggregation of individual investors have a great body of expertise. And by pulling that knowledge together to make investments is a very powerful change agent.
Let's talk about that for a second. Let's drill down a little bit. Social media and the financial services industry. We've got about 5 minutes left, so don't feel rushed. We can walk through this.
Well, I very strongly, and a core portion of Gate Global Impact's strategy is social media is now going to be meeting financial services. We may even see a power shift of our traditional financial service firms to social media companies like Facebook, like Twitter, etc. Because what do they have? They have a massive amount of user base. This is a new way that they can create revenue and have those users invest. So the traditional financial service firms, I think, are going to have to find a marriage. And this becomes the new distribution channel that is a good thing for everybody. It creates transparency. It creates more liquidity, more opportunity for the companies being funded, and more importantly, I'll call, as many of us do, the democratization of capital formation. It allows the accredited investors and even the retail investors access to more product that they didn't have the opportunity to get to until the professional investors had achieved a lot of the capital appreciation in that deal.
So, in your opinion, do you see that this is actually going to bring that much-needed liquidity to the private industry sector also?
Well, I think that is a bit of the holy grail, and part of what we've developed at Gate Global Impact is the secondary trading applications.
There you go.
Right? Because what do people ask before they invest? What's my exit strategy?
Yep.
It's no longer just an IPO in 3 to 5 years or the merger and acquisition. And when you compound that, Michael, with the fact that the regulation has changed under Title 5 and 6, that you can now have 2,000 shareholders from 500 as part of the Jobs Act in a private company without having to go public. So you really create a new ecosystem of private companies having the ability to raise capital, do it very efficiently using Web 3.0 and social media, and the ability to secondary trade and have liquidity without a lot of the onerous costs of being public. And they can grow. They can choose to go public as the next phase, do a Reg A offering that now went from $5 million to $50 million under the Jobs Act. Or, frankly, they can choose to stay private for a much longer or forever because they can have raise capital and have liquidity to their investors.
This is going to be an exciting segment. Now, you're going to be on the show every Friday at 2:30 Central, leading the charge on what's going on in this new industry sector. But if I can pause for just a moment, I'm looking at your website, Gate Global Impact, and I see Facebook, I see Twitter, I see LinkedIn, and a new one for me, Shout. Could you tell us what that is?
Oh, man, am I happy you asked that question. Shout-O-Matic. This is a strategic partnership of ours, and they are changing the delivery of information by using one's own voice overlaid on social media. What does that mean? Instead of tweeting your message, it's actually your very own voice being recorded and being delivered over Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, any social media platform.
So,
in fact, it could easily be done on inanimate objects, and we can go into that another point in time. But I think it's going to change the very engagement of consumers who become stakeholders in companies and stakeholders who then become consumers. And it's that very integration of what it means to be an investor, to believe in a company that you're giving money to and helping them grow.
Thank you for that. I can't wait to integrate Shout into our show. Now, we're out of time here. One more time, please. Contact information for you, your partners, so that our audience can participate with you and gain more knowledge that you're going to bring to the table.
Great. And I do a little bit of my New York speak too quickly, so
Sorry.
let me just say, Gate Global Impact, all one word.com, GateGlobalImpact.com. You can log on. You can sign up as a private company. You could sign up as a potential investor. And I'll try one more time. My personal cell, 917-886-7250. Love to interact directly. My partner, Joe Latona, 908-421-0417. And if you didn't get those, just email me right off the site. Come into me on LinkedIn, into Shout-O-Matic, and really let's engage. Let's change this. Let's educate one another. Let's create new ways to go about building our country. And in the process, we're going to deliver good. And that's an amazing process.
Thank you, Vincent. I'll see you Friday next week at 2:30.
Look forward to it, Michael. Again, thank you and Clear Channel for this opportunity.
All right.
Thank you to your listeners.
My pleasure. And a special thanks to Monk Media and 1-800 Public Relations for all their PR and media support. Up next, Nick Santiago, President and CEO. And when he comes on the show, we're going to talk about Apple, Lulu, you name it. We're going to go through about 4 or 5 of those. We'll be right back on the other side of this break.